The south gardens always smelled faintly of lavender, though Theo suspected it was genetically engineered lavender, the kind that glowed faintly under Varathella's twin moons and made you feel like you'd walked into a perfume commercial. He leaned against a sculpted pillar, armor itching in all the wrong places, chewing on the last dry bite of a nutrition bar. 6-winged creatures, officially classified as birds, though they looked more like spinning lanterns with feathers, bobbed overhead in lazy spirals. The mirrored lakes reflected them in shimmering fragments, 1,000 kaleidoscopic pieces. It was supposed to be serene alien beauty at its finest. For Theo, it was just another shift of trying to look unremarkable while Varathellan guards, with cheekbones sharp enough to cut stone, strolled past without sparing him a glance. Then the air folded in on itself, not an explosion, not at first a sudden pressure, as if someone had clapped the atmosphere between giant hands. The shockwave rippled through the garden. Sculptures fractured into glittering shards, fountains collapsed into a storm of glass, and the lavender tongue turned acrid in Theo's throat. He stumbled, armor rattling, ears ringing. A second detonation came sharper, closer, slamming him flat. His half-eaten bar rolled into a hedge that immediately lashed out with needle thorns. He yelped and swatted it away, muttering, "Hostile shrubbery, great," adding that to the list. Sirens blared across 3 languages. "Evacuate, evacuate, evacuate." Guards scrambled. A royal barge crashed down in the courtyard, its gilded fins curling in flame. Theo dragged himself upright, scanning through smoke and chaos. That's... When he saw it, a flicker of pale blue fabric vanishing behind a collapsed wall near the old library wing. He didn't think. He bolted Dot inside. The palace was a wounded animal, sparks spitting from torn wires, corridors sagging. The floor tilted like a drunk deck under his boots. One hallway reeked of roasted almonds plasma leakage. Excellent. Death with a sweet aftertaste. He pushed through, ears still ringing, when a sound stopped him cold. A hiccup, not mechanical, not structural. A child's hiccup, wet and tremulous. He followed, stepping over cracked tiles until a half-flickering door field sputtered at his side. He pushed through into a dim storage chamber. Dot, she was there. A small figure crouched behind a crate, clutching a singed plush beast with too many heads. Long translucent ears quivered like fragile glass, her skin pale as moonlight, her violet eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Her dress royal blue with silver trim was torn, soot smeared across her cheeks. She couldn't have been more than 6. For a breath, they stared at one another, frozen. Theo dropped into a crouch, raising empty hands. "Hey," he said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you. You okay?" Her lip trembled. Then, with all the solemn fury in the galaxy, she hurled the plush toy at him and bolted Dot. It smacked him square in the chest. "Okay, strong start," he muttered, catching it. He chased her through the corridor, ducking falling plaster. "I'm human, but the helpful kind." Not protocol-approved dialogue, but he was improvising. She skidded, tripped on loose wiring, and sprawled with a cry. Theo slid down beside her, scooping her into his arms before she could scramble away. She twisted, clawed, screamed, then sank her teeth into his hand. Pain flared. Ow! Sharp teeth. Great evolutionary choice. Not letting go. He tightened his grip, wrapping her close against him. 3 seconds of feral thrashing. Then she went limp. Her eyes fluttered shut, her breath shallow but steady. She'd fainted. Theo stood slowly, the building groaning around them. Somewhere above, part of the ceiling gave way with a crash, dust choking the air. He glanced down at the child in his arms, her small face smeared with ash, her fingers locked around his armor like he was the only stable thing left. "Yeah," he muttered, heart pounding. "You better be important, because I just skipped about 50 interstellar regulations. The southern launch deck was gone, nothing left but a smoking hole and flame. He veered into the service corridors, narrow tunnels that smelled of lubricants and burnt soup. Cleaning drones spun uselessly, one dragging a bucket stenciled "not a bomb." He didn't air slow. His pulse hammered as the child stirred against him, a faint hum prickling under his skin where her small hand pressed his chest. Adrenaline, he told himself. Just adrenaline. At last, the supply dock door loomed, bathed in red emergency lights. He slapped the panel. It blinked once, then the bay hissed open to reveal a row of escape shuttles waiting like beetles with folded wings. The nearest one chirped. In a too cheerful voice, destination confirmed, not exploding. Theo tightened his hold on the girl, let out a breath that was half a laugh, and stepped forward into the glow dot. The shuttle's hatch sighed open with a hiss that sounded suspiciously judgmental, as if it doubted either of them belonged there. Theo ducked inside, the little girl cradled against his chest, and laid her gently across a padded bench. She stirred, still unconscious, plush toy clutched to her side even in sleep. Her small crown, half melted at the edges, glittered faintly in the dim red light. The interior smelled faintly of coolant and stale air, but the console hummed awake at his touch, eager as a puppy. A soothing voice whispered, "Please select escape destination." "Anywhere not on fire?" Theo muttered. Destination confirmed, not exploding. Estimated survival probability, 38%. He groaned. Great, comforting. With a shudder, the shuttle detached. Gravity fell away, and for a heartbeat, they dropped like a stone. The thrusters ignited, hauling them out into Varela's night sky. Below, the once pristine palace lay in ruins, its towers crumpled into smoldering heaps. Smoke and flame curled upward like accusing fingers. Theo leaned back in the pilot's seat, heart still pounding. He'd gone from ceremonial ornament to kidnapper of princesses in under 10 minutes. He glanced at the girl. She had turned slightly in her sleep, her translucent ears twitching, breath shallow but steady. The melted crown gleamed against her soot-streaked dress. He'd seen her once before, at a banquet, perched beside the towering queen, small and solemn, circlet glittering with embedded starlight. That's her, he realized, the heir. The one every system in the Alliance would go to war for, and she had drooled on his shirt. Perfect. He whispered. The nav display blinked a course nearest human-friendly outpost. Horizon Arc 5, a medical platform orbiting one of Varela's outer moons. Neutral, safe, practical. No marble statues or hostile shrubbery, just dented steel and too many vending machines. For once, luck was on his side. The shuttle hummed steady now, engines smoothing into a rhythmic thrum. Theo adjusted their heading, muscles finally beginning to unclench. The girl stirred again, eyelids fluttering. Violet eyes, faintly glowing, cracked open. She looked at him, squinting through smoke and exhaustion. "You smell like burnt toast," she rasped. Theo blinked. "That's probably the palace burning." She considered this, then gave a solemn little nod. "Okay, I like toast." And with that, she closed her eyes again. Theo stared at her for a long moment, then let out a strangled laugh. "Of course you do." The rest of the flight passed in a haze of adrenaline and disbelief. Horizon Arc 5 loomed ahead, a blocky, dense-scarred steel lily floating in black. Its docking rings rotated lazily, magnetic clamps glowing faint blue. Across its hull, the welcome message blinked. "We probably won't explode." Theo always had liked that. The docking clamps caught the shuttle, pulling it smoothly into the hangar. Through the cockpit glass, Theo saw maintenance bots scurrying, engineers in rumpled uniforms, and a vending unit with an out-of-strawberry bars notice plastered across it in 6 languages. Home of a sort. The hatch hissed open. Theo slung his battered armor straighter, gathered the girl into his arms, and stepped down the ramp. A young technician chewing something bright green froze mid-step, eyes widening. Sir?" the tech stammered. "Is that?" "Yes." Theo cut him off, already weary. "Yes, she is. No, you can't pet her. And yes, I need medical and diplomatic clearance yesterday." The girl shifted, ears flicking, and muttered in her sleep, "I command toast." Theo sighed. "Yeah, kid, you and me both." Somewhere deeper in the station, alarms were already being raised. Secure channels would be lighting up, envoys demanding explanations. Theo knew he'd just delivered the single most important and dangerous passenger in the sector. Protocol screamed at him to step aside, to let the diplomats handle it. But as he glanced down at the child in his arms, soot streaked across her cheeks, tiny fingers still gripping her plush beast like a lifeline. Theo knew he wouldn't. He hadn't left her in the rubble. He wasn't about to leave her now. Docking Bay 3 smelled of coolant and scorched noodles, which Theo considered an improvement over lavender ash and collapsing palaces. Horizon Arc 5 had never hosted royalty, unless you counted that smuggler from the Lupa Belt who once wore a fake tiara and demanded to be called Your Spiciness. Still, when the obsidian vessel of Queen Valmira glided into the hangar, everything stilled. Conversations cut mid-sentence. Tools clattered to the deck. Even the ancient coffee machine sputtered once and fell silent, as if admitting unworthiness. Theo stood near the edge of the bay, trying to look casual with a soot-smeared child clutching a lollipop at his side. The girl, Princess Lara, though she still hadn't admitted her name, swung her legs idly, humming off-key. A medic had given her the candy under the official designation of stabilizing therapy, which Theo strongly suspected was medical code, for we had no idea what else to do. The royal ship's hull gleamed with threads of gold light, its surface humming with restrained energy. When the hatch opened, Queen Valmira descended alone. No guards, no procession. She didn't need them. She was tall, draped in armor that shimmered with shifting script, every plate inscribed with history. Her long silver-touched ears swept back like blades, and her violet eyes cut across the hangar with the weight of command. Theo cleared his throat, fighting the urge to salute, bow, or bolt. "So, welcome aboard. Nice place, right? Smells a bit like coolant and fried noodles, but it grows on you." Her gaze pinned him. "You are the human who rescued my daughter." Theo glanced down at Ira, who was now attempting to stick her lollipop to the side of her own head like an antenna. Technically, yes, though rescued might be generous. It was more of a panicked sprint through collapsing architecture while being bitten repeatedly. Valmira's expression didn't change. Then she stepped closer, lowering gracefully. To one knee in front of her daughter, she extended her hand. "Come." Lara froze, violet eyes darting from mother to soldier. Then she shook her head. "No." The queen blinked, almost imperceptibly. "No?" "You're scary," Lara announced, pointing at her mother with sticky fingers. Then she jabbed her lollipop toward Theo. "He's funny." Theo raised both brows. "I'll take it. Not every day I outrank a monarch in the comedy department." For a heartbeat, silence held. Then Queen Valmira rose, her expression unreadable, but her gaze sharpened. "You will walk with me." Theo hesitated. "Do I get a sash or something?" "You get to live," she replied, turning toward the station's observation corridor. "Fair point," Theo muttered, falling into step beside her. Lyra immediately latched onto his hand, as though it were hers by decree. Station crew followed. At a cautious distance, whispering into comms, they entered the lounge, its curved glass wall framing the fractured moon below, glowing with rivers of bioluminescent algae. The queen stood in silence, her eyes reflecting the shifting light. Finally, she spoke. When the palace fell, I believed she was lost. My guards failed. My advisors fled. And yet you, an outsider, carried her from fire. Theo shifted uneasily. She was scared, small, and had surprisingly good aim with a plush toy. Valmira's lips twitched, almost a smile, though it vanished as quickly as it came. You could have left her. I didn't. The queen studied him. Then, without warning, she raised two slender fingers and touched them to his temple. Heat bloomed behind his eyes. Images flashed fear, hope, the sound of a child's laugh echoing. Down shattered corridors. Not his memories. Hers. The connection thrummed between them, strange and intimate, a recognition beyond words. Theo staggered back, blinking. What? What was that? A bond recognition, Valmira said softly. You are known to me now. That's either very comforting, Theo muttered, rubbing his temple, or very alarming. Behind them, Laura yawned extravagantly, tugging on his arm. Can we go somewhere with pillows now? Valmira meant and lifted her daughter easily. Yes, and I believe this station has toast. Theo exhaled, letting himself laugh. Perfect. We'll build an interstellar alliance out of carbs. For the first time, Queen Valmira's stern composure cracked, the faintest glimmer of warmth in her eyes. And for a moment, standing in orbit above a fractured moon, it wasn't about treaties or titles. It was about a soldier, a queen, and a child finding something unexpectedly steady in the ruins' quiet understanding, fragile trust, and toast. But even as warmth flickered in the air, alarms whispered faintly in the background. Somewhere deeper in the station, a hatch cycled open without authorization. Hydroponics had not been designed for diplomacy. Oversized cucumbers dangled from trellises, misting vents sighed rhythmically, and a tomato vine leaned in with such judgmental authority that Theo half expected it to request voting rights. Still, it was the cleanest place Horizon Arc 5 had available, so Commander Reyes had draped a few towels over crates and called it a summit chamber. Theo leaned against a table covered in glowing moss, still in soot-stained armor. Queen Valmira sat with flawless posture atop a crate marked Property of Laundry Unit B12, sipping tea like it was a throne. Princess Lyra had acquired a lab coat 3 sizes too big, safety goggles, and 2 nutrient pellets she clutched as though they were sacred stones. She paraded between lettuce towers, declaring herself a scientist of royal snacks. Commander Reyes, who had once ended a trade war by faking food poisoning, looked like a man regretting every career choice that had brought him to this moment. Let me get this straight, he said, pacing, his voice sharp. A human soldier abandoned protocol, grabbed the Verithellan heir during an active bombing, evacuated her without authorization in a shuttle that wasn't his, and now the queen of an empire is having tea with my cucumbers. Theo spread his hands. When you say it like that, it sounds reckless. But in context, it made sense. It doesn't at all, Reyes snapped, pinching the bridge of his nose. Before Valmira could answer, the hydroponics doors hissed open. 2 new figures swept inside. One was Envoy Garin Hao, the Earth diplomat permanently stationed here. Polished and smiling, as though the universe owed him applause. The other, taller and draped in layers of oil-slick robes, was Counselor Sirith, a Verithellan traditionalist who carried disdain like perfume. Your Majesty, Hala said smoothly, bowing with the precision of a man who had practiced in a mirror. We are, of course, relieved beyond words that your daughter has been recovered, but we must discuss jurisdiction. Horizon Arc is an Earth-controlled platform. Technically, custody of the child falls under my custody, Valmira cut in, her voice sharp enough to slice the mist. She is heir to the crown, not a misplaced crate. Cirith stepped forward, ears angled back in disapproval. With respect, Sovereign, the optics are dangerous. Already whispers spread of a human soldier seizing the princess. Tradition demands she be returned to Verithellan soil immediately, under council supervision. His gaze slid over Theo like a blade. You have allowed contamination. Theo folded his arms. Nice to meet you too. Reyes tried to interject, but the words were drowned by a sudden alert. One of the medbay feeds flashed on a side console, showing static and smoke. A shape crawled across the floor, angular, humanoid. A glint of metal caught the camera before it cut out. Theo froze. That's the medbay. Lara, still in her oversized lab coat, looked up from the moss she had been poking. That's where my pillow is. Theo was already moving. He vaulted past cucumbers, boots clanging on steel, heart hammering. Behind him, Valmira's armor shimmered into kinetic readiness. Reyes barked orders into comms. They tore through the corridors, the air acrid with smoke. A guard lay unconscious near the medbay hatch, chest rising and falling, but his weapon missing. The door itself sagged inward, edges melted. Theo shoved through. The room reeked of ozone. A cradle bed was overturned, sheets charred. Res plush. Creature lay discarded on the floor, its seam split open, revealing not stuffing, but a shard of humming crystal pulsing faint blue. Theo crouched, recognition jolting through him. A beacon. Someone had hidden a locator inside a child's toy. His stomach dropped as Valmira swept past him, scanning the wreckage. The medbay was empty. The princess was gone. Theo's hands clenched around the plush, the faint hum of the shard vibrating in his bones. The queen's voice was ice. They have taken her. Theo's mind caught on one truth, sharp and brutal. Whoever had planned this hadn't just bombed a palace. They had prepared for this moment, this abduction, long before the first explosion. Corridor lights flickered, and far off, station sensors pinged a departing skiff, masked as diplomatic freight. Theo shoved the ruined toy into his belt, every nerve on fire. Then let's go get her back. The patrol craft rattled like a shopping cart with rockets. Theo braced himself against the console as stars blurred outside, his pulse keeping pace with the shrill whine of the engines. Horizon Arc 5 was shrinking into a distant smudge behind them, its comms filled with frantic chatter. He ignored it. His focus locked on the tiny red blip sliding across the nav display, a skiff carrying Princess Lara. Beside him, Queen Valmira sat rigid, her armor alive, with script that shifted faintly in the dark cabin. She didn't look at the controls or the readouts. She looked at the stars ahead, as though the void itself might yield her daughter. The air between them was tense, brittle, carrying the scent of ion burns and fear. Theo cleared his throat, mostly to keep his own nerves from chewing him alive. So, just to clarify, if I ram this crate into their hull, is that considered diplomacy or war? Valmira's gaze flicked toward him. It will be considered justice. Good, Theo muttered, yanking the throttle. The skiff had ducked into a debris field, shattered remains of some long-dead satellite chain. Fragments of steel and glass floated like a broken chandelier in the void. Theo maneuvered through, jaw tight, reading the faint burn trails on the skiff's wake. He'd learned long ago that ships left stories behind in their exhaust. This one screamed haste and desperation. On the comms, Commander Reyes' voice crackled. Theo, stand down. Repeat, stand down. That's a diplomatic courier's skiff Earth credentials. If you engage, it'll spiral into... Theo flicked the channel off. Not today, sir. Valmira's ears twitched, sharp as blades. That voice. He orders you to abandon her. Theo didn't look at her. He's not wrong. Orders say keep my head down, don't start galactic incidents. His grip tightened on the controls. But I already broke about 50 rules today. What's one more? The Queen studied him, something soft and unreadable flickering in her violet eyes. You would risk yourself against your own command? Theo's laugh was dry. Lady, my own command's been trying to pretend I don't exist since I set foot on this planet. But that kid, he swallowed. She looked at me like I was safe. Can't walk away from that. A shadow loomed in the debris, the skiff. Its hull was painted in neutral grays, unmarked except for the faint shimmer of forged clearance codes. Theo slowed the patrol craft, eyes narrowing. Valmer's armor rippled. They masked their crime with symbols of diplomacy. Cowards. The skiff broadcast a hail, smooth and calm. Unidentified vessel, disengage. You are interfering with a protected diplomatic transfer. Retreat immediately or face sanction. Theo toggled the comm. This is Sergeant Theo Merrick. You've got something that doesn't belong to you. Namely, a very opinionated 6-year-old with a fondness for toast. Hand her back. There was silence. Then a new voice answered, familiar and infuriating. Sergeant Merrick, I was hoping it wouldn't be you. Theo's stomach dropped. Halle, Envoy Garen Hale's voice dripped silk. You stumbled into an arrangement far above your clearance. The princess is safer with us. With me. The Verithellan monarchy has grown. Unstable. Earth can provide balance, leverage. Surely you see the logic. Theo stared at the comm as if he could throttle it. You kidnapped a kid for leverage. That's not logic. That's... The Queen leaned forward, cutting across him. Release my daughter, or I will carve your ship open like fruit. Halle chuckled, maddeningly calm. Ah, but you won't, Your Majesty, because you know what I know, the child is more than air. She is the key to the crown lattice, and your soldier. Well, he's already been marked by it. Fascinating. Isn't it? The first human bridge. Theo blinked. The what now? But Halle had already cut the line. The skiff surged ahead, engines flaring. Theo slammed the throttle forward, weaving after it through tumbling wreckage. Shards of metal scraped the patrol's hull. Warning lights flared angry red. Hold tight, Theo growled, eyes fixed on the skiff. Valmira's voice was low, almost reverent. Bridge, the lattice recognizes you. It hasn't chosen in centuries. Yeah, well, Theo muttered, jaw clenched as he pushed the craft harder. Tell it to pick someone else. The patrol ship jolted as they latched onto the skiff's docking clamp. Metal groaned, sparks dancing across the viewport. Theo grabbed his sidearm. Valmira rose, armor whispering like a drawn sword. The hatch irised open with a reluctant screech dot inside. The med cradle glowed faintly. Lara lay within, breathing softly, a shimmer of containment fields around her. And standing before her, calm as ever, was Envoy Hail pistol drawn, a smile curling his lips. Sergeant, Halle said smoothly. Queen, let's be reasonable. Theo raised his weapon, pulse thundering in his ears. Funny, that's exactly what I was about to say. The air between the two ships was thin, metallic, and brimming with tension. Theo stepped through the docking collar first, sidearm raised, sweat running cold beneath his armor. The narrow hold of the skiff was dimly lit, panels flickering, as if the ship itself wanted no part of this meeting. Envoy Hall stood framed by. The glow of the med cradle. In its field, Princess Lyra slept, her chest rising and falling, her translucent ears twitching in dreams. Hale's pistol gleamed steady in his hand, but his expression was maddeningly calm, like a man confident the rules of the galaxy bent for him. Sergeant, Halle said softly, like a teacher scolding a stubborn pupil. You can't win this. The child isn't safe in Varithella's hands. She isn't safe in yours. Earth can protect her, and more importantly, we can use her. Imagine it an empire balanced, no longer ruled by fragile sentiment, but guided by pragmatism. Theo's finger tightened on the trigger. You're talking about a 6-year-old girl, not a bargaining chip. She is both, Holly replied smoothly. And you, of all people, should be grateful. The lattice has touched you. Do you even understand what that means? You're a bridge sergeant, the first human ever marked. With you, Earth gains leverage. Beyond treaties, beyond war. Think of the reward. Behind Theo, the docking collar hissed. Queen Valmira stepped into the skiff. Her armor shimmered like liquid steel, script lines glowing faintly in response to her fury. Her violet eyes locked on high, cold enough to freeze stone. You dare speak of rewards while you steal my daughter from her bed? Hawley did not lower his pistol. I speak of survival, Your Majesty. The crown lattice has been dormant for centuries. Now it awakens, and it chooses a human. That should terrify you. It doesn't, Theo muttered, though his heart hammered so hard he thought it might split his ribs. Valmira advanced, her presence filling the cramped hold like gravity itself. Release her, envoy, or you will not leave this skiff alive. Hails. Eyes flicked, calculating. For the first time, a bead of sweat traced his temple. His pistol wavered. Theo saw it and acted. He lunged. The shot rang out, searing past Theo's shoulder, earning armor. He collided with Hala, the pistol cracking against the wall, sparks flaring. They grappled, Theo's training rough and desperate against Hale's polished precision. Fists, elbows, knees. For a breath, Hale almost overpowered him then Theo's. Fist found Hale's jaw. The envoy went down, groaning, blood bright against his teeth. Theo kicked the pistol aside and aimed his own weapon at Hale's chest. End of the line. Valmira swept past, shattering the med-cradle field with a touch. She gathered Ira into her arms, the child stirring, blinking blearily awake. Mama, she whispered, voice soft, frightened. I am here, Valmira murmured, pulling her close, but the triumph was short-lived. Back on Horizon Arc 5, alarms flared. The cum crackled to life, Commander Reyes shouting over static. Theo Queen, get back now. The counselor's here. He brought Verithelin security. They're not here to help. Theo's blood chilled. Counselor Sirith, the Queen's ears angled sharply back, her jaw tightening. A coup, she said, her voice low and dangerous. Theo holstered his sidearm and hauled Hale upright, shoving him into a bulkhead restraint. And let's show them this isn't going to be easy. When they docked back at Horizon Arc 5, the station was no longer a haven. Verithelin guards in gleaming robes patrolled the corridors, their insignia strange, their formation hostile. Counselor Sirith stood at the center of it all, hands folded, eyes glinting with cold triumph. The princess is safe, Sirith announced as Valmira stepped off the skiff, Lara clinging to her shoulder. But the contamination must end here. The human has interfered enough. The lattice bond must be severed before it spreads. The Queen's armor glowed brighter, script pulsing like a heartbeat. You dare. Sirith's lips curled. I obey tradition. You, sovereign, have grown weak, hiding behind foreigners. Depending on a human's instinct, the lattice is ours. The child is ours. Lara whimpered, clutching Theo's sleeve. And in that instant, Theo felt it again, the hum under his skin, the echo that had sparked in the garden. The sigil burned faintly at his temple. Across Lara's wrist, light flickered in response. The crown lattice was awake. Sirith raised a shard of crystal, its pulse resonating with the station systems. Lights flickered, panels groaned, gravity lurched. The stolen shard sang with the same energy humming in Theo's veins. Theo staggered, gripping Ara close. The sigil on his skin flared brighter, answering. The entire station shuddered, caught between collapse and ignition. Cirith's eyes widened. In shock. Impossible? A human? Theo planted his boots, pulling Ira tight against his chest, staring down Cirith through the chaos. Yeah, guess the universe has a sense of humor. The Crown Lattice's song roared through him. Through Valmira, through the terrified but defiant child in his arms. And as the station quaked, Theo realized whatever this was, whatever impossible role the galaxy had just shoved onto his shoulders, he wasn't running from it. Not now, not ever. The station held its breath. Bulkheads groaned like tired giants. Lights flickered in spasms, and the hydroponics bay transformed into a throne. Room by necessity glowed faint green from the bioluminescent moss that clung to every surface. Soldiers, technicians, medbots, and startled gardeners all stood pressed against the walls as the confrontation unfolded. Counselor Cirith's stolen shard pulsed with malicious rhythm, a crystalline heartbeat that made the walls vibrate. He raised it higher, voice carrying the cold weight of tradition. The lattice belongs to Varithella. It answers only to our blood. You are a trespasser human, a flaw in the weave. Give her to me. Theo's arm tightened around Laura, her tiny fingers locked in his soot-stained armor. His temple burned as the sigil blazed like liquid fire under his skin. His knees wanted to buckle from the pressure of it, but he refused to move. Queen Valmira stepped forward, violet eyes flashing. You would tear apart an empire to preserve your own fear. You speak of blood, Cirith, but the lattice never belonged to us alone. It belongs to those who protect. Cirith sneered. Protect? He endangers us. A human bridge is an insult to our lineage. He has poisoned the crown. I will cut him out. The shard screamed, sending arcs of energy crackling down the bay. Metal warped. A tomato vine burst into flame. Technicians yelped and ducked. Theo staggered, but forced himself upright, heart pounding like a war drum. His voice cracked, but carried. Here's the thing about bridges, he said. They're not about who owns them. They're about who needs them. And right now, she needs me. He looked down. Laja's violet eyes glowed with faint light, her lips pressed thin with stubborn courage. I choose, she whispered, almost too softly to hear. The lattice answered. Theo's whole body jolted as energy surged between him, the queen, and the king. Child. 3 nodes in 1 circuit. Heat washed through the chamber, but it wasn't burning. It was recognition, ancient and immense. A song of guardianship written into the bones of 2 civilizations. Valmira's armor flared, script glowing. In radiant waves. Lyra lifted her chin, regal even with sticky fingers, clutching a plush toy. And Theo, the nobody soldier in itchy armor, stood at their side as the sigil on his temple bloomed into brilliant light. The shard in Cirith's hand cracked. He screamed, the energy turning back on him, searing across his robes. The crystal shattered with a sound like glass under ice. Cirith crumpled to the floor, clutching his arm, his eyes wide with horror. Impossible, he rasped. A human cannot, Valmira cut him off, her voice carrying like thunder. He can. He did. And the lattice has spoken. The bay fell into stunned silence. Even the tomato vines seemed to lean closer, as though bearing witness. Theo swayed. Exhausted, his chest heaving. The sigil dimmed to a faint ember, but its echo remained in his veins. Valmira placed a hand over her daughter's head, then turned to Theo. Her voice softened, though the steel never left it. You are part of this court now. Not by decree, but by the will of the crown itself. You are bridge. Theo blinked, his dry humor surfacing, even as his knees threatened to give way. Do I at least get a crown made of moss? Because the decor here is kind of growing on me. A ripple of nervous laughter broke through the tension. Ray groaned into his hands. Great, he's making jokes. The galaxy's going to love this. Valmira's lips curved into something rare, something close to a smile. Your reward is greater than gold or crown. You are welcome in our sky. Wherever it stretches, wherever it breaks, you will not walk it alone. Lare tugged Theo's sleeve, her voice solemn in the way only children could manage. That means forever. He looked down at her, then back at the Queen. The weight of what he'd just become pressed against him, terrifying and vast. Yet beneath it, for the first time in years, something else settled into place. Belonging to Theo. Exhaled, slow and shaky, and let a smile tug at the corner of his mouth. Well, guess I'd better get used to toast. Outside the station's windows, the fractured moon glowed with its rivers of light. For the first time, Theo thought space didn't just hum with the sound of loneliness. It hummed with promise. And somewhere deep in the archives of the Crown Lattice, a truth stirred ancient, forgotten, now revealed. Humanity had always been part of the weave. They were not guests in this empire. They were the bridge it had been waiting for. Would you like me to extend this into a longer closing sequence? Theo's choice between Earth and Varithella, and the secret reveal of humanity's old connection. To the lattice, or keep it ending here with the bridge recognition triumph?